escape from here, but
Green Zoe says, "Hey there."
hey, hello, Haru. I'm handsome. I know that. All right.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Neo. We'll see you a little later.
See you later.
That's
Bye.
funny. So funny, dude.
What
so
do you
funny.
know of Beleriand in the First Age? I love Beleriand in the First Age.
Me too. One of my favorite things to talk about is early Silmarillion stuff. My big trip is Numenor. That's my bailiwick. My whole bailiwick is the Akalabeth. I don't talk so much about Doriath and what happened in Gondolin. I mean, I know it, but it's not more my fascination as a deep fan. My deep fandom lies in what happened at Numenor. Like slavery, devil worship, like satanic cult, but it was Sauron getting worshipped by the Numenorians. I'm telling you, the shit got dark. It got really, really bad.
Amazing.
It got really bad. No, you know?
Yeah.
But what's your favorite part of the Beleriand story? And the early First Age?
Oh, this very easily.
The Baron of Luthien.
Well, it is and it isn't actually. I love the story of Fëanor and the fall of the Noldor at the very beginning, the fleeing of the Noldorin, with Fëanor leaving
the attack on the ships
Valinor.
on Aquaman, the kinslaying.
Yes, I find it very powerful. What I love about reading The Lord of the Rings is about reading the Silmarillion is you come to appreciate the complexity of the elves so much more.
Yes.
Like when you look at what the likes of Galadriel have been through, and what elves have been through as a race, like what Galadriel calls the long defeat, where they know that they cannot remain in Middle Earth. They know that they are cursed. They know that they will ultimately dwindle, and some will return to Valinor, and some may not.
And their primary sin is indulging in this stalling.
Yeah.
And her using her ring of power in Lothlorien to preserve time and to slow down the progress of time and to, try to temporarily procrastinate against what she said was the long defeat.
Yeah.
And that was what Tolkien really wanted to point out was their error, their spiritual error was not going with the flow.
In these jewels, the Silmarillion story where you have that, and that's my voice. Ooh. And he sees the ability to capture the light of the trees of Valinor.
We're in an echo chamber.
We're in an Inception
story where you have that. Wow. I walked past Hans Zimmer's star on the Hollywood Hall of Fame Walk of Fame today, and all I could think of was wow.
I know exactly. Oh my God! Okay, what we were saying about Beleriand and your fascination for the First Age elves.
and Fëanor's kind of need to create this, and and it reflects so much. Sometimes we kind of separate ourselves from the elves because we think, well, no, we're the men, but the elves reflect so much on who we are as well with regards our thirst for knowledge, and sometimes that ability to pick at that scab that maybe you should just leave. And he picks it and he creates these Silmarils, which then of course brings the desire of Melkor, who ultimately says, well, here's my opportunity now to be the sole owner of the light of the trees of Valinor, when he brings in Ungoliant, the terrifying spider, to sap the life and light from the trees of Valinor.
We're live again on Facebook stream.
We're live on Facebook stream again. Awesome.
This is, you know what? I'm digging this. I'm so digging talking. I always love to talk deep cuts about Silmarillion stuff. The concept of the light of the two trees, and
it's gorgeous, and
wanting to have it stolen. Ungoliant just wanted to consume it. She just wanted to eat it.
Yeah.
And Melkor realized, I suppose, that the creation of the Silmarils helped facilitate the destruction of the trees, because Melkor realized he could still have the light and possess it,
but
and control it, and him alone, through what Fëanor's instrument had, the instrument of Fëanor's talent.
And what I love,
that's odd. to create something so beautiful,
Yeah.
and it may inadvertently have brought about the destruction of the most beautiful thing of all. Yeah. Oh.
And one,
Ooh.
yeah, oh, absolutely. And one little link that a lot of people don't realize.
Hi, Facebook. We love you. This is Clifford and John D. Ruddy.
Hi.
Sorry to interrupt. This is the man, Rud the Spud. This is the man you got to follow on YouTube and watch his amazing, informational, beautifully illustrated, fun videos on YouTube. He's my guest star. I am your amiable host, Clifford Broadway. We're restarting, and so I just have to do this all over again. This is called
Deja vu here on
This
Instagram.
what's what we call station identification.
Yeah.
Hey, there's my buddy Kieran Owen. He's a lad who lives up in Wales, right across the Sea of Man.
A fellow Celt.
Yes, he's a fellow half Celt.
The Irish Sea.
The Irish Sea.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Isle of Man is
Yeah.
in between your home and his home.
Tis.
Tis.
Yeah.
And that's where the Manx kitty cat comes from. The adorable little
Yeah.
breed that has no tail.
The Isle
The
of
Manx
Man.
cat. I love the Manx cats.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Hey, listen.
And they have a Celtic language in the Isle of Man as well.
Oh, they do a Celtic language
Manx,
of their own. I
yeah.
love it, Manx.
It's
they do.
similar.
Yes,
It's similar in some ways to Irish.
I dig it.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Hey, Keely from Happy Hobbit.
Hi.
We are forever thankful to K.M. Rice, the amazing, talented author of Darkling. Here's the beautiful new edition of Darkling.
It's so pretty.
And it's because we love K.M. Rice, we love her so much, that we've got our friend was introduced to us by way of connecting those dots, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, and here's John D. Ruddy with us on our 6th anniversary. Celebrate holiday,
Was the Instagram
cause
meant
it's
to go
time to
off?
celebrate. Instagram goes off all the time.
Oh, that's okay.
And
Just
then,
checking.
and then it comes back on. And there we go. And we'll start it again. And it'll restart again.
The joys of technology.
That's what technology is for.
What was,
Complications.
what was the name of the website you started on again?
We started?
Yeah.
Oh, Stickcam.
Oh, that's right.
You mean our broadcast? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 6 years ago. Do you believe it or not? Hey there. There's Diane. There's Kieran. There's Jacob. There's Janine. Jean. Jean Bourgeois. Ha ha ha. Jen. I said your name wrong again. Jean Bourgeois. Hello, Cliff and John. And all of our friends are here with us, Annika. We're going to get Instagram going again. And what was the last question? Sorry?
We were talking about... we were talking about the Silmarils.
The Silmarils.
And there's an interesting little link that a lot of people don't realize that they have actually seen the light of the Silmarils in Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Can you tell me where the light of the Silmarils can be seen?
Well, the light of the Silmaril, which ended up, one of them ended up being placed upon the brow of Eärendil. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the ship of Eärendil, which set sail across the evening sky, was the brightest and most inspirational star to the Noldor. And in the beautiful water of the File of Galadriel, it contains the light of Eärendil, which is, the actual light originally of one of the Silmarils.
Which was originally the light
of the two trees. Which is why it's so powerful against Shelob.
Yeah.
Is because
and against, if the films are to go by, against Sauron himself and the Ringwraiths.
And the Ringwraiths.
That's what Galadriel uses.
Yes, she does. Indeed. If the films are to be believed.
Yeah.
And if you go back and watch the animated Rankin and Bass, The Return of the King, you'll see an episode where Samwise actually goes up against the Watchers at the gate. The gate outside the citadel of Cirith Ungol.
I haven't watched the Ralph Bakshi one in ages.
That's the Ralph Bakshi one was another one, but then he never got that far.
Oh wait,
The Rankin and Bass.
The Rankin and Bass one. Sorry.
The Rankin and Bass one, which was
where there's a whip, there's a whip. I haven't seen that entire film.
Yes. How about oh my gosh, what does that say? It comes in pints. Hey, how you doing? Have a wee drink in your It Comes in Pints tankard to celebrate Torn's anniversary.
Nice.
And had a gorgeous, beautiful ginger Manx tabby girl, Elsa Rose. Oh, she's gone, I'm sorry, but she blessed you with 14 and a half years of love. Pipsquay, I love you, and I love that story, that you had a beautiful Manx cat named Elsa Rose for 14 and a half years. That's beautiful. That's really lovely. Thank you for sharing that. And I know how that feels. I'm at the 1 year anniversary. It may be the 6 year anniversary of my show, but it's also the 1-year anniversary of the passing of my little cat, Punamu, who was named after the New Zealand jade. All the New Zealanders wear that Punamu, the jade necklace.
Yeah.
You can instantly recognize a Kiwi by them having that, that nephrite jade they have. And so that was my Punamu. So, you know, we miss you. We miss our kitties. We miss our kitties. We do. We miss them. So, anyways, about the first age.
Is that live now?
Start live video?
Yeah.
Let's start the live video now.
Cool.
There is, Skype is open. If you want to talk to us on the show, we have a live hotline, 530, number 6, number 4, FRODO. That's 530-64-FRODO.
I remember calling that.
For Frodo. Okay.
I love it. I remember calling that number when you were.
Really? You did?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah, you were.
From Ireland? You called us?
Yeah, you were en route to Dragon Con.
We did our road to Dragon Con, yes.
Yeah, and I was
that.
talking to you. Oh, what was it?
IG isn't working.
Can't even remember. I think it was before Desolation of Smog came
Yes. I'm going to open up Skype, guys. You can call us. You can chat with us. I have John D. Ruddy here with us. We have all kinds of mischief going on our 6th anniversary. Let's see. Am I online?
That's one problem I always have with Smog or Smaug, is pronounced properly. It is Smaug.
It is Smaug.
But it doesn't suit my accent at all.
It doesn't. Does
no,
it?
the way the diphthong works. You know, Sauron works, but Smaug just doesn't sound right.
How about the way Peter Jackson says it? Schmaug.
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 Where does he get the sh from?
Because he's being.
Because he says Schmiegel as well.
Because he's being shilly. Schmaug.
Yeah,
now he does say Schmiegel, but it is. It's not Schmiegel.
No, it's Schmiegel.
It never was Schmiegel.
No.
So he's guilty of both Schmiegel and Schmaug.
Yeah.
Why does he do that? Oh, Peter Jackson, we love you, but
yeah,
what?
and in fairness, we
What
can
the
give
hell?
him a little bit of leniency here. He
the
did
hell?
give us, some pretty damn good movies.
The One Ring Net, yes, he did. Okay, one of my favorite things to argue about, because I end up being a Hobbit movie apologist. I don't want to, but I end up being a defender of the Hobbit films.
Okay.
If you're going to introduce a newbie to the 6 films of the Middle-earth series, and they've never seen any of them before, do you begin with the older trilogy of rings, or start them with watching Saruman as a good guy in the Hobbit films, and then transition up to the later? In that same question for introducing a newbie to Star Wars applies.
Oh, well, for Star Wars, it's a slightly more complicated question.
It is. It becomes
or a slightly more complicated answer.
Machete order as well.
Yeah, exactly. Machete.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
We know that. But what about IG to heck with the IG stream? It's not working.
Yeah. Well, with introducing somebody to Middle Earth, well, me personally, I would show them my personal 2-movie cut of The Hobbit.
Your 2-movie cut of The Hobbit? All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Fair
enough.
I recut it to see using kind of hints and pointers that were dropped by Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh as to how it would have originally worked as 2 movies.
Yeah.
I cut it into 2 movies, and it's so much better.
Yeah.
It actually, no, they're still 2 very long films.
Yes.
Both of them are the same length as Return of the King Extended Edition.
Which is
so
4
hours. Well, if we're going just to the start of the credits, 3.5 hours.
Okay.
So yeah.
Really?
So it is still. They're both still long.
Oh, you're right. Without all those scrolling credits and the fan club credits at the end of extended.
But the pacing is so much better.
Is it really?
Oh yes, and the
That's my friend calling. He's not realizing I'm in the middle of a live show.
Hey, we're in a show.
Hey, we're in a live show.
And
stop calling me.
And we did.
Well, I mean, if you're a fan and you want to be on the show, call me. But yeah,
of course.
Sorry.
Go
ahead.
But it works a lot better as 2 movies.
It does, doesn't it?
And where
did you cut out lots of Tauriel and Legolas stuff?
I cut out a little Legolas. I kept in Tauriel because, going by the way the films were written, Tauriel was always going to be a main character.
Yes.
And judging by what you can see, she was always going to be. Even the relationship with her and Killy was always kind of hinted at, because they were setting it up all the way from Rivendell, where in the extended edition, and he's eyeing up this elf. It's setting up that Killy is attracted to elves.
Yes, it is.
So
Yeah.
you can see that they were planting the seeds there.
Yes.
Whereas with Legolas, I kind of felt that once they moved to 3 movies,
He's attracted to androgynous elves.
they felt with Legolas, I think they felt that they kind of had a bit more room to develop Legolas. But I just felt that Legolas, you didn't need to develop him. I didn't think that he, he works in The Hobbit as a supporting character really well. And when he is just that really cool guy in the background that does really cool things during the action sequences, he works. He's essentially the Ajax from Troy.
Ajax,
that cool warrior in the background that just
Yes.
does cool stuff.
Yeah, great analogy. Yeah.
But you don't have to develop him. Whereas whenever they develop, it just, the third movie was very padded.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't. There's no single blame to be made anywhere because of all of the different conditions that went into the making of these films.
Yeah.
I think it's a miracle that those films are as good as they are given the conditions that they were made in. I say hats off to everybody who pulled that off, because that, from what I can see, and I had nothing to do with it, it looked really stressful.
It sure
so
did. Yes,
well
it sure
done.
did. Yeah.
But now, in hindsight, and giving the space and time to breathe, I think there were quite a lot of things that you could cut from it. Plus, what I've, because originally Fran Walsh had spoken that
like running 350 miles all the way to Gundabad for no reason but to observe an army.
Well, I mean,
and then go 350 miles back to come back to Erebor.
Well,
overnight.
Part of my problem was that. Part of my problem was that it still needed to be a coherent cut.
Yeah.
So there are some scenes that preferably I would have cut, but they had to be in there. Because you can see in the 2-movie structure that Azog should have been present all the way up until Barrels Out of Bond. Because Azog is in the very first Desolation of Smaug trailer.
Yeah.
You see him showing up at Barrels Out of Bond, and it makes sense when you look at the 2-movie cut, because you've introduced Azog as your villain. Of course, you're going to pay it off at the end of the first film with that final confrontation with the barrel sequence.
Yes.
I
remember that original Comic-Con
Yeah.
reveal of those panels
Yeah.
showed that the first story narrative
went all the way up to
the barrels out of Bond, and that was the end of the first film.
And the final shot, or one of the final shots, was Bard showing up. Do it again and you're dead.
Yeah.
And all you see is that dark silhouette
Yeah.
of him, and that's why, because the reveal was meant to be the following film.
That's right.
And it really works, because the way I've cut it is, it's like, do it again and you're dead. And then the music swells, and then it cuts to that final shot leading up to the Lonely Mountain and finding Smaug under the... like the first film originally ended anyway.
Oh, cool.
But it just
Cool.
gets the blood boiling a little bit more.
Yes, indeed.
But with Azog, what I ended up doing was the backstory to Azog was originally going to be told in Beorn's house. Balin was going to tell it there. So I put it there, and what it does, it creates this really nice twist. That up until that point, the first time you meet Azog is up in Amon Sul, whenever the guys come and they fail to capture Thorin. And so you're like, right, who is this guy? This guy's creepy. We don't know who he is. All we know is he's after Thorin.
Yeah.
All orcs are after Thorin, so fair enough.
Yeah.
And he's hunting them down. And even the Goblin King is, I know someone who would pay a pretty price for your head, just a head, nothing attached.
Yes.
And then I
Very good. By
and
the
then
way.
I cut out
That's
the
good.
little line of a pale Azog the Defiler.
Yeah.
Basically, I cut out the reference specifically to Azog
Yeah.
and go straight to send word to the pale orc that I have his prize, or whatever the line is. And so the audience doesn't know who he is, and Thorin doesn't know who he is. All he's hearing is the pale orc.
Yeah.
And then later, finally, when they meet out of the frying pan into the fire in the forest, they see each other
For the first time.
and the audience is watching, and he's doing the, do you smell that? It's the smell of fear. It's the smell your father had when I killed him. And Thorin's like, Azog, and you're like, they know each other. They have beef. and all of a sudden the stakes are raised, Thorn's jumping out of the tree, and you're going, oh my god, this just
wow, cool.
It really ups the stakes.
Yeah, it does.
And then they escape, and then the audience is going, what was all that about? And Balin sits down and says, well, I'll tell you what that was all about. And
the magic of editing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not a professional editor, so I mean,
it's cool.
It's rough around the edges, but it does the job. What comments do we have?
Sean Speakman says that Manu Bennett is too pretty to be the pale orc. Huh.
Well, I mean,
maybe. Maybe.
It's not Manu Bennett's face on the CGI character.
I really dig that idea. Yeah. I really dig that.
Yeah, it really worked.
Let's see. We're getting questions on the hotline. We're totally getting questions on the hotline.
What do we have?
Any rumors on what Warner Brothers will do with the property now that they settled the lawsuit? No, there are no rumors yet, except for rumors that we start ourselves. Right here on the OneRing.net. That's
the rumor mill.
This is where we start the rumors. I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah.
It is what you call carte blanche.
Yeah.
The French mean white paper. It's a blank sheet of paper which suggests infinite possibilities that could be written on that blank sheet of paper. So when someone says you have, white card, you have white paper, it means you have anything you want in front of you. Limitless possibilities. Or as Jean-Luc Picard would say, while dealing poker to the crew members of the Enterprise, sky's the limit. So, sorry, had to do a little Patrick Stewart for you. By the way, I heard Patrick Stewart once incorrectly use the term Scotch in referring to a Scottish person.
What did he say?
It's in dialogue in Star Trek The Next Generation.
Right.
He's like, I didn't know your family was Scotch. He says that. I mean, he said, yes, and I'm like, no, nobody says that. It's Scottish, right? Scotch is a drink.
Yeah.
Anyways, but where were we just now?
Well,
Okay.
you could kind of say it.
Can you get away with that?
Yeah, you can get away. Yeah.
Well,
and I would imagine Patrick Stewart would know.
Of course he would know. He would have corrected it. But I mean, all right, I wouldn't call you whiskey just because I love Irish whiskey.
No, but Scotch is Scotch because it's made in Scotland.
That's true.
You know?
I know it is. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay.
And the difference in spelling, you've got whiskey. Whiskey with an E at the end is Irish, and whiskey without the E is Scotch.
Is Scotch. Is Scotch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the word whiskey, here's a fun fact.
And bourbon.
The word whiskey comes from the Irish language.
Oh!
Ishke behe. Ishke behe, which Ishke is water, and behe means the water of life. Ishke behe.
Oh.
Yeah. And so Ishke became whiskey.
Whiskey.
There you go.
Ishke behe. Wow, that's super cool.
The more you know.
The more you know, with a star like da da da. That's super cool.
That was for you, Niall.
And bourbon is only made in Kentucky.
Oh, really?
Bourbon,
real
bourbon, American bourbon,
right,
is distilled in the state of Kentucky, and it only comes from Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that's really
specific. And the less said about the Kentucky Fried Chicken, though, that's a different story.
Kentucky Fried Chicken. You can get your KFC anywhere around the world these days. It's not from Kentucky.
Letterkenny Port Road.
Hey, Ms. Roberts, hi from Dublin again.
Oh,
you're getting a hello from Dublin.
Hey, down in Dublin.
Oh, good. The stream is working again. Yes, the stream is working.
Good.
All right,
we're not just talking to nobody.
Azog, by purist standards, Azog was long since dead.
Yeah.
And there's this weird kind of switcheroo between Necromancer calling Azog back to Dol Guldur, and the Hobbit films all of a sudden produce Bolg, who I think should have been our villain from the beginning. From the very beginning, it would have been Bolg the whole time.
And I think that's what was going to be.
Don't you
originally,
think? Yes.
You know, I think the whole thing of Bolg and Azog, and it really fascinates me. And I did something hilariously geeky earlier in the year. I chronicled. I had just finished writing a book, and I was like, I'm going to do something for fun. So what do? I chronicle the entire production calendar of The Hobbit.
Oh gosh.
Using dates. Oh, totally Anaraki. Using dates from the special editions, from any of the call sheets that you see on the Blu-rays, or any of the clapper boards. You've got the date in the corner, and I chronicled them all. Well, the reason why I did this was because I wanted to see where decisions were made, and where things were publicly announced and where things were privately announced.
Wow, this is fascinating.
And so you can see early in the day you had Big Beardy Azog.
Yeah.
You know, which shows up briefly as the Dol Guldur guard in
He does. Who's
in
about
Battle
to
of Five Army.
about to chop his finger off?
Yeah.
In the opening sequence of
Yeah.
Five Armies?
Yeah.
Extended.
An extended edition.
And how about the early toy design?
Yeah.
He had an early action figure design.
And Azog was the Big Beardy,
Yeah.
played by Conan. What was his name?
Stevens.
Conan Stevens.
That's right.
And so you had that design, and he
Yes.
was done all the way through the Dol Guldur sequence, and you can see by the dates that they had all of the Dol Guldur stuff done and dusted very early on.
Wow.
So like all the way to the stuff that ended up being in the Battle of the Five Armies, that was all done and dusted very early on.
Really? Wow. Wow.
Just before they broke up for the for the UK shoot,
Yes.
because then they got the pickups in the UK shoot of Christopher Lee's footage for
Yes.
that sequence, but they already had all of Dol Guldur shot at that point.
They did the UK footage specifically to get, older Ian Holm
Yeah,
and Christopher Lee.
because they couldn't travel because they were too old.
At the
That's
time.
fair enough.
Yeah.
And they,
Yeah.
but then later they seem to have, whenever they returned back, when they were shooting the Battle of Moria, the Battle of Azanul Bazaar, and the Out of the Frying Pan into the Fire, all of a sudden you have a different design of Azog. You have the one that looks more ratty and old, and what ultimately kind of went into the design of Yazneg.
It did become that. Yeah.
And so you can see that they had changed, and it was at this point publicly when people started to hear that who we understood was going to be Azog was now Bolg.
Yes.
So you're like, okay, so Azog is now going to be a different character. So originally then that ratty character was going to be Azog, and Big Beardy guy was going to be Bolg.
Uh-huh.
And then somewhere or another it was clear that perhaps Peter Jackson lost confidence in the design, or I think perhaps the choice of making a completely CG character allowed them a lot more flexibility, because you could see that they didn't know what they were doing going into the Battle of the Five Armies. There was potential rumour of perhaps Sauron showing up at the Battle of the Five Armies. I know Benedict Cumberbatch made a slip up very early on in production.
Yes.
What truth there was in that, who knows? But they knew that they needed a chief protagonist to show up at the Battle of the Five Armies, and that had to be Azog. And they're sitting there looking at these two designs, Big Beardy Azog and Little Ratty Azog, and they're going, can these work? Will these work? And all of a sudden, if you change your character into a CGI character, now this is all speculation, I don't know, but if you change your character into a CGI character, you have so much more flexibility that you don't have to design them for when you're on set. Like, once you look at whenever they were finally shooting the Battle of the Five Armies, all of the orcs, well, not so much the battle in Dale, but all of what the dwarves were out fighting. Mm-hmm. They were all fighting guys in green onesies. Yeah, and
that's right.
And so that allowed time to design what those orcs were going to look like.
Yeah.
And whenever you look at how densely stressful that production period was, anything that can buy you time to design things was all the better, because it meant that Peter Jackson didn't have to say, okay, this is what they're going to look like. It says, right, okay, we know what the dwarves are going to look like. That's enough. We can design those guys after the second film is released, and that'll be fine. Because if you think, whenever they were shooting the final Battle of the Five Armies, they still hadn't released the second movie. So they had all of that still ahead of them, and as you can see from the documentaries, getting the second movie finished was seriously close to the deadline.
They almost didn't get it done.
Yeah, oh yeah. Like they went over their deadline by like about 2 days.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
Yeah, they almost didn't get it done.
You know, but when you look at that, it was so the ability to say, right, you know what, we don't have to have a final design on what that looks like, that buys time, and that's a totally understandable decision to make.
It's really unfortunate that so many dynamic stresses and really dynamic pressures influenced some of the filmmakers' decisions that way. Yeah. I think that's what's unfortunate.
Yeah, it was. And
conspiracy theorists continue to assert that the studio interfered at every level and made Peter do things that he didn't want to do. I don't know about that either, but again, this is where we start rumors.
Yeah.
This is our purpose.
Well, say if you take the two movie structure, for example.
Yeah.
When you look at how Peter Jackson had approached filming, where all the prep had gone into the kind of first 2 weeks, and then after that he said he was winging it, and that's fair enough, and he was able to do it, and he did a great job of it. But the problem was that it got to a point where he had almost overshot things, or again, I'm only speculating here, but where they'd overshot for the first movie, and they're realizing that, oh, this is actually getting really chunky, and it's getting really long. Like when I tried to cut it into 2 movies, they're 2 3.5 hour long movies, and they were sitting there going, well, we can't have 2 3.5 hour long movies, and all of a sudden it starts getting chunky, but because all of these things are so integral, you can't chop them out too much.
Yes.
Whereas I think if there had been more time to prep, they would have been able to identify earlier where pacing would lag, what they really needed to shoot, and what they could get away without shooting. Whereas I think once they got the ball rolling, they just kept shooting, and we're like, yeah, now we've got this scene, now we've got this scene. And then later they're looking at all the scenes together and going, this is really long. Oh. And whenever finally Peter Jackson had to buy the time to shoot the final battle of the Five Army sequence, because he could wing it up until that point, because all the scenes up until that point were people talking or going from point A to point B. It was easy to bluff because he knew what he was doing. But when it comes to the battle sequence, that's a completely different matter. The battle needs to make sense. The battle has to have set pieces. The battle needs to make strategic sense. And he was like, I've done that in Lord of the Rings. I know how complicated that is. I cannot wing that. And he did the right job. Now, this is where you start going into conjecture and conspiracy theory. The official line, what they went on whenever they first announced that they were making 3 movies, was that they felt that they had enough narrative content to make 3 movies. Having seen the 3 movies, I think they didn't. Because I felt it was a little bit stretched, particularly the 3rd movie.
Yes.
But what I reckon reading between the lines, again, this is completely conjecture, I think it was possibly one of 2 things. I think Peter Jackson had identified that he couldn't bluff this, and that he needed this extra time. And I think one of 2 things happened. Either he went to the studios and asked for the extra time to shoot, and they says, right, well, you can have the extra time to shoot, but you're giving us 3 movies now. It was either that, or he, rather than going to them with a problem, he came to them with a solution and says, hey, I think we might be able to make 3 movies. We might just need a couple of extra weeks of shooting, but yeah, could we do that?
I tend to think that's more likely.
I think that might have been, knowing kind of Peter Jackson's kind of ability to blag, I think it's
yes.
an interesting approach. Now, again, this is complete conjecture.
Again, conjecture, yes.
But reading between the lines, I think that is a possibility. And
just as likely.
Hats off to him for doing it. And I mean, again, I highly commend everybody involved in that project for not buckling underneath all of that pressure. Peter Jackson, the utmost, all of that pressure.
Well, yeah, and making 6 films of a piece, which is really significant, that he could get his art department and his score composer and everybody to make everything exactly on the same page. And to actually go to the lengths of going all the way to shoot footage for a bookend shots of Oldie and Home. That's really, really nice that they could do all that the way
The Hobbit ends is just perfect.
No, the very last scene
is absolutely well.
Thank you.
The entire epilogue of that movie.
The epilogue is really good,
including Thorne's funeral.
Yes, which should have happened in the theatrical version. Yes.
But they included it eventually, so it's all good.
Yes.
What was interesting as well, in my 2 movie cut, I ended up including quite a few things that were cut from the theatrical cut of Battle of Five Armies, which I found quite ironic.
Yes.
I included Beaufort's scene as Bilbo is leaving
Yes,
during the
good.
nighttime.
Yes.
Because what happens actually once you see it in a two-movie structure,
Yes.
certain things work so much better. You've got Sting, for example, which is set up at the start. Then there's the conversation with Balin saying, "Oh, it's I don't think it has a name. It's not more than a letter opener, really."
Yes.
And then towards the end of the same movie, film 1, he names the sword Sting. So that works so much better in one film. And likewise, you've got the setup of Killy fancying the elf in Rivendell, and then at the end of the movie having that first little flirtatious scene with Tauriel, and it works and it sets it up. And what happens? I've taken out Legolas from that love triangle because it was redundant and it didn't make any sense in the film anyway. And what's nice about it in the second film, the love story then between Killy and Tauriel becomes so much more tragic in that it's not so much this undying love for each other because they've only met each other twice. It's more so this, isn't it such a shame? Given any other time, this could have worked, but this is just really bad timing. It's tragic in the loss of the potential of something nice, and it's much more underplayed. And because I took out the if this is love, I do not want it, because I just felt it didn't warrant that. I thought it was so much better if you just underplayed it a little bit more. Again, she did a great job with it, but I just found that relationship hadn't warranted this undying love. It was more so about if we had the ability to ignore all of this war, this could have worked. But no, and then he goes and dies in the battle, which doesn't help. But the two-movie structure works so much better. Halfway through film 1, you've got this scene where Bilbo is sneaking away from the mountains, and Bofur stops him.
Yeah.
Halfway through film 2, you've got the same scene.
Yep, you do.
And
yes.
but the times have changed. Yeah. And Bilbo in the first one is kind of I don't know, and Bilbo in the second one, he is so much more confident.
Yes.
And also, the character arc of Bilbo in film 1 is so much more powerful because it's from the book. His proving moment is saving them from the spiders and saving them with the barrels.
Yes.
And I am convinced that the scene where Thorin, what were you doing? You could have gotten yourself killed. Did I not say that you?
Which happens on top of the Carrock.
Yeah, I'm almost sure that a similar scene with similar lines happened on the riverside, because and in my cut I have clumsily edited it in there. You kind of have to use your imagination, but it works.
Okay,
it works.
I get that. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
but
cool.
I still genuinely believe that scene would have been at the tail end of film 1 anyway.
I agree.
And it makes so much more sense for Bilbo's character that is where he has proven himself.
Yes.
And because of that, I cut out Bilbo running to save Thorin from Azog that time, because that at that point doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So when you look at it as two films, you begin to see that it was written as two films.
Yeah, and the benefits of presenting it that way. We got off on this beautiful tangent by talking about how to introduce a newbie to these 6 films. And I have people constantly argue with me and say, you must show a newbie The Lord of the Rings first. Given in this hypothetical,
what age they are.
Given that they're at the right age to read it, but haven't read it yet.
Okay.
That they're older than 12, older than 11 or 12 as a kid. Yeah. They're ready to absorb some powerful high fantasy. Yeah. And you want to have them see the big masterpiece, or do you want to have them enjoy the minor work first? Because I believe that there will be diminished enjoyment if they, like there was for many fans of the Lord of the Rings films, when you see the greater trilogy first, and then see The Hobbit with some of its interesting but inherent problems with the narrative, I find it is complicated and not that satisfying to show But again, the benefit of home video lets you show it in any order you want.
Yeah.
And that's why we have the machete order,
Yeah.
which kind of makes a chop-socky, toss around of the Star Wars films.
It actually creates a new twist in Star Wars.
Yes, and it makes it work beautifully. Yes, it does.
Do you know the twist I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
Which one?
About Leia and
Yes.
about Leia and Luke.
Yeah.
Having the drama hang over them of not knowing each other's lineage until the very end.
But even more so. Okay, what we're talking about, the machete order of Star Wars, is watching it 4, 5, 2, 3, 6.
That's right. A New Hope,
Yeah.
and then Empire Strikes Back to establish Luke's story, and then with the big reveal of Anakin saying, "By the way, I'm your dad," then you let that drama hang in the air.
Plus, Han Solo's trapped in carbonite.
Indeed, he is. And
huge cliffhanger.
Let all that drama and suspense hang taut in the air, and then do a flashback. After you do 4 and 5, you immediately flash back and do 2 and 3, having skipped the Phantom Menace entirely. And with that flashback of Anakin's story, you lead up to the birth of Luke and Leia, and then you bring both Anakin and Luke's story together to resolve nicely in a nice wrap-up called Return of the Jedi. So it's 4 and 5, and then 2 and 3,
Yeah.
and then flash forward again to 6.
Because
Episode 6. That's the machete order.
It actually creates a new twist because the problem is if you watch it chronologically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you lose the twist of "I am your father," which is such a great twist.
Yes,
but even the reveal of Yoda is also a great twist reveal that's lost if you watch it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if you watch it 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, you end on a downer with inferior films. And Revenge of the Sith, as great as I love Revenge of the Sith, but you end on a real downer.
Yeah.
But watching it 4, 5, 2, 3, 6, you get a new twist because, okay, so I am your father, right? That's fine. And then Padme reveals at the start of Revenge of the Sith, "I'm pregnant." So you're like, "Oh, okay, that's Luke." Okay, and then it gets to the end of the film, she's carrying twins. What?
Oh, that's the big surprise.
You're like,
yeah.
Who's the other one?
Yeah.
We, myself and
The
a friend of
audience
mine,
doesn't even know.
Yeah,
allegedly, at that.
myself
yes.
and my friend Niall, we actually experimented with this. We showed his girlfriend; she'd never watched Star Wars, so we showed it in this order.
Yes.
And that was her reaction. It was like, "She's carrying twins." What? Who's the other one?
Yes,
so it's like,
yes,
Luke,
yes.
here's Luke, and you're like, "And who's the other one?" Leia. Oh my God!
Really?
And
Did
so,
her mind
yeah,
blown?
yeah. And so you're going into Return of the Jedi going, "Oh my God, they're brother and sister."
And that tension is hanging over them.
Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
So he has that conversation and she says, "What is it, Luke? What is it?" And he says,
Yeah.
"I'll tell you later."
Yeah, and you're
Remember
like,
that
"Oh,
line?
yeah,
That line?
yeah."
And he says, "We'll talk later."
Yeah.
And it's still like the tension is still hanging
well,
over them.
at this point,
Yeah.
the audience would have known anyway because Obi-Wan had revealed it. But
I
still,
dig that.
it
Yeah,
is,
I dig. That's what I love
It really
about
works.
that.
But not
Yes.
only that, but Return of the Jedi works so much better straight after Revenge of the Sith because you have
does.
just seen Palpatine win.
Yes.
And you've seen him do all the same tricks that he does on Luke in Return of the Jedi. So you're watching him going, "Oh no, this is how Anakin fell."
Yeah.
So the stakes are raised considerably.
Yes,
And there's that
yes.
wonderful parallel between whenever Anakin is choosing between Mace Windu and Palpatine.
Yeah.
You then have the same dilemma where he's looking between Palpatine and his son.
And he looks and looks.
and it's
yeah.
perfect. And then
Yeah,
why
I
did
dig
George
that.
Lucas add that? No.
That's. I think it would have been better if it was just a tortured.
No, it didn't even need. No, the silence from the original cut was so much more powerful. It was this wonderful stoic.
Yeah.
It was just. It was really powerful. Like that's the thing with the
agreed.
special editions. For every bit that he pushed into place, he pushed another bit out of place. Sorry, highway for.
Sorry.
Comments.
Okay, we're getting.
Loads.
Hi.
We've been talking for so long.
We've got lots of text messages coming from the hotline. Cool to be celebrating your anniversary of Torn Tuesday with you. Thank you for joining us on our 6th anniversary. My favorite episode was probably the one with Bill Hunt and Michael Pellerin from last year.
Oh, I've watched that again.
That was one of my favorite shows.
I've watched that several times. I love it.
Yeah, isn't that great?
You know, as a teenager growing up watching all of those documentaries,
Those guys.
and then finally listening to Michael Pellerin going, "Oh yeah, that time we made those documentaries." I'm like, I love those documentaries.
Okay, I'm getting a text from animator Angus Oblong, the cartoonist and animator who created the hit animated series from the 90s called The Oblongs. Anybody remember that? I'm getting a text from him too. He wants me to officiate his wedding.
Oh, wonderful.
So I'm so sorry. I'm doing my live stream show now.
Hashtag text you later.
Yes.
What do we got?
Hashtag text you later.
Kathy from Berlin. Oh, hallo, wie geht's? I agree that The Hobbit is minor. Lord of the Rings is absolutely the masterpiece. Whoa, where'd it go? I watch it repeatedly. The Hobbit much less often, except Thranduil. Oh, Thranduil's brilliant. But again, in small doses. Thranduil didn't need to be a main character in the third movie, so I cut a lot of the stuff between him and Tyrell.
Yes.
Because it wasn't needed. I found he worked, similarly to Legolas, he worked so much better as a support character rather than a main character.
My question for today, how do you feel the lack of the scene with Gandalf and Thranduil discussing the White Gems affects both the theatrical and the extended cut? Best regards, Jan from Denmark. Wow. Hello, Denmark, and thank you for staying up so late. Oh, wow. That's awesome. I see you there. And hey, Kai Tensuji, yes, I was very happy to retweet your beautiful Orome cosplay. That was a gorgeous bit of costume design work. It was well done. Very well done. So, to the question. How do you think the lack of a scene with Gandalf and Thranduil discussing the White Gems? There was a scene that was shot with Lee Pace and Ian McKellen talking about the White Gems that he wanted. I didn't know there was that.
Right. Well,
I didn't know that.
I mean, again, now, and this is kind of a personal thing. I just thought that film 3 was just too crowded, and there were so many subplots that weren't needed. I thought there was enough fleshing out of we get it. He wants the White Gems. There was that scene now because it was linked then with the fact that it was his wife. It was Thranduil. It was that the jewels belonged to his wife.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as they alleged. Yes.
Yeah. And it was basically that Gandalf kind of spells out that that you have something far more precious that still loves you and is still here.
Indeed.
But my personal opinion is, I thought that those subplots weren't needed to begin with, and that it should have been 2 movies. But the less I
should have been 2 movies, right?
But I thought it was a weak subplot. It could have helped, but I thought it was a bit overwieldy as it was.
So, having covered a little bit of illustrative conversation about what the machete order is for Star Wars fans, you can't exactly do a machete order and twist things around with our Middle Earth trilogy. So, are you of the opinion that a newbie, maybe a younger person who hasn't read the books, what would you do? Would you sit them down in front of Rings first or Hobbit first?
It depends what age of the.
Yes, it could be your cut.
Yeah. No. Well, if it was my edit, then Hobbit first.
Okay. There's that.
But given what is officially available, I would show someone between the ages of 8 and 12. I would show Hobbit first.
Yes.
Show theatrical Hobbit first.
Really? Not R-rated?
Well,
troll squishing?
I thought that was far too gratuitous. I didn't like that.
Yeah, it was.
I loved myself a bit of gore, but I just felt it was particularly stumpy. I did not like. It was the most un-Tolkien thing.
That was a very.
It was like, can you imagine Professor Tolkien typing, and then the big giant troll with, stumps, with the paraplegic.
With metal legs.
With metal legs and
amputated
flails
legs.
for arms.
Yeah.
It would have been totally at home in a Warhammer movie or a Warcraft movie.
Yeah, sure.
That fits the aesthetic perfectly. But I just find that level of
driving a blinded troll
sadism.
With
I just found that wasn't part of Tolkien. I just found it very un-Tolkien.
We want to say goodbye, Kelly.
Are you away, Kelly?
Kelly is off into the wild frontier. We love you, Kelly.
I will see you next week.
Thank you. Yes, you guys will be seeing him next week. You're going up the coast?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, you're going up the coast of California.
This is my first time out in the West Coast. It's amazing.
Isn't it? California's an amazing place.
It's so hot.
Yes.
It's so hot.
Well, it got cooler yesterday.
Yeah, it's still hot for me.
It's still hot for you.
It's still hot for me.
We got 74 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius.
What is that?
But I know. I'll have to look it up on my... But hey, that was much, much cooler and a little bit of cloud cover yesterday, which made it a little bit nicer.
In Ireland, that is considered a gorgeous day.
Really?
The hottest day ever recorded in Ireland is 33 degrees Celsius, so I don't know what that is. And I think it's about kind of
33? I'm going to look it up. I'm going to use a conversion tool.
Yeah.
I definitely have a conversion tool right here.
Yeah.
Where is it? Units.
Units.
There it is.
I always need it. And there's always some that I remember. I always remember 37 degrees Celsius is 100 degrees Fahrenheit because that's body temperature.
There you go. So
and
33?
33 Celsius.
That's almost 91 degrees Fahrenheit.
And that's exceptionally hot in Ireland.
That's hot here. That's hot here too.
Yeah, no, but we never get that. You know, that's a rarity.
Yesterday's 25 degrees Celsius was too much for you.
Oh, that was lovely.
Yesterday.
Yeah, but it was like but it was a hot day for Ireland, you know. In Ireland, 25 degrees, people are running for the beach.
Really? At 77? Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. See, we're used to that.
Yeah, if we get any, because you see, because the weather in Ireland is so variable, is it? You can get all 4 seasons in one day. If there is any hint of nice weather, people drop everything and go to the beach because we don't know when the next nice day is coming.
Of course. Oh my.
Hey, we just got a text from Drew in Rhode Island.
Yes.
Who's more north?
Yes, Drew from Rhode Island.
I've been in Rhode Island.
Rhode Island is basically the Ireland of the UK. It's the most north you can possibly go. Is that right?
Rhode Island?
Yeah.
As in
the US.
In the US?
Yeah. The most north place you can go in the US is Rhode Island.
No, Maine's further north.
Maine is further north. Look on a map.
What do you mean?
Well,
wait, yeah.
Rhode Island, then you go north of Rhode
Alaska
Island.
is further again, but
Alaska.
But the contiguous. Contiguous.
That's a weird word.
There we go.
Did you talk about? You were telling me earlier that you wrote down everything that
the Chronicle,
Peter Jackson.
Yeah. We were talking about this.
That is kind of amazing.
I really want to see that.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely send it on to you, and we can publish it on the One Ring.
Oh God, yes,
definitely.
please. That would be super cool. So, what did you learn ultimately? That big takeaway from having chronicled the production dates. So all the Dol Guldur stuff was done early, and then the UK shoot was done immediately then, and that was before they'd done large-scale principal photography down in New Zealand.
Yeah, I think what I learned was that they realized towards the end of their what I learned was what they decided to shoot during the reshoots. So I think that informed me what they thought was needed, you know, or what they decided to add. But also on top of that, you could also see that they had potentially lost confidence in the design of Azog. At what point they lost confidence in the design of Azog, and just where they started to kind of use more CG because it allowed them to buy time. Yeah. I think.
Now, do you think that they changed Azog because they didn't like the look of him, or do you think they changed him because it would have been too much to reshoot that actor in a suit?
I think it was a combination of the two. I think having him, I think they decided for a CG character because they didn't have time. They started producing those shots. I think it was something like 6 weeks before the final film. They started. I think Manu Bennett, from the dates that I could see, Manu Bennett was doing his mocap in August, and the film was coming out in December. Yeah. So
that was really last minute.
So
they knew it would affect every element of redoing him down the other
exactly. But I think it was then just this kind of added effect that they realized that because they had this CG character, that they were able to simply swap him out with Bolg at the Barrels Out of Bond sequence, and they realized, you know what, actually we can introduce Bolg here, and we can redesign Bolg while we're at it, because you can see that he has some design elements from the big beardy Bolg, you know, because he has that same metal plating along the top, and he has the same dwarf face leather
over his loincloth,
and the kind of skulls on his, you know, so you can see that they used elements to it, and I'd say they almost surprised themselves when they ultimately used Big Beardy Bolg in Battle of the Five Armies, where they realized we can't cut around this. I think you could see, particularly, it's so, of all the things it's really badly cut is that sequence where Galadriel blasts him.
Yeah.
Because when you look at what they had storyboarded originally for that sequence, she was walking along this, walking up a staircase,
Yes.
and Bolg was there, and she was blasting him and blasting him and blasting him,
Yeah.
and he was getting knocked back further and further. There was more to that sequence.
Oh yeah.
Beorn was in Dol Guldur.
What?
Yes.
Really?
There
What?
are- yeah.
Exclusive to the
There-
OneRing.net, revealed by Rud the Spud right now.
You can read in the call sheets that are on the Blu-rays. You can see that Beorn was in.
I
Beorn
missed that.
had cages. There had been cages
Wow.
of Beorn in human form strapped to they were in some obscure production photos that you could see a Beorn cage in the background of Dol Guldur.
Wow.
And in the scene where Radagast and Gandalf are leaving Dol Guldur, it's like, I need a horse. Beorn was also in that scene,
Wow.
and he was cut out.
And he said he had-
And you can actually see some of the script written down somewhere. And
And it's not just in those Blu-ray
I didn't know
in those call sheets, but there were Lego sets
yeah, exactly,
that
yeah.
had Beorn in the
And
Dol
that's why.
Guldur
And
set.
that's why. And so
Where's that movie?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, Beorn had so much more to do in those films that in the 3-movie structure, he just seemed to get cut.
It says that they're Lego sets.
Yeah.
Toy Lego sets
Yeah.
of
We just said that.
Beorn at
Yeah.
Dol Guldur. Bam.
Yeah.
Right.
We just said
You
that.
just
Welcome
said
to 5
that.
minutes ago.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
like
welcome
2
to-
minutes ago.
Welcome to the internet.
But I
Welcome to
think
the internet.
the problem, the biggest problem I had was that they in a lot of behind the scenes stuff, they said that they wanted to change the look of Azog, and they didn't have time
Yeah.
because of pre-production. But they've shot all this stuff with the original Azog, Conan Stevens,
Yeah.
right? But then they added on to that by saying we didn't like how it looked.
Yeah.
We didn't like how the prosthetics were looking in 3D, and I thought that did a disservice to the quality and craftsmanship of Weta, where if it doesn't look good on camera, like they know Weta Workshop knows how to make things
Yeah.
look great, and
And
thing
seeing it in the extended edition, it looks great.
it looks
You're like,
great.
"Why did
It
you
looks
have
better
that?"
than all the CGI orcs combined.
Yeah.
That original Bolg, the gatekeeper, or original Azog.
Yeah.
And so the disconnect I have is like all the interviews said we didn't like how the prosthetics were turning out on camera, so we had to go all CGI. But then we saw what it looked like on camera,
It looked good.
and it looked way
Yeah.
better. So why are you going to disparage the work of the Weta Workshop?
Well, I mean, I would the people of
Well-
Weta Workshop are completely professional, and they understand that if a design isn't working, it's not working, and it's not.
But it worked.
Yeah, I know
That
it
was
worked.
the
I
thing.
know.
It
All right,
was
yeah.
working.
So why blame it on them? I know what you're saying,
Yeah.
but that's what makes him the director. The director says so. You do it.
That's right. Jan Nicolasen says that the stuff with Beorn at Dol Guldur is seen in
Yeah.
some of the extras on the extended edition of what? Of Desolation of
Yeah.
Smaug? Or extended edition of Battle of the Five Armies? I'd like to find it.
It was
Where can I
probably a
find
part of the movie when Beorn was supposed to take revenge and kill Bolg himself. I
Yeah.
think that too. Well, I still like that it was Thorin that killed Azog. I think that really worked. But yeah, if it was Beorn that killed Bolg, it would have been interesting if there was more of a relationship between the two of them, because they set it up very briefly in that scene in Beorn's house, and then they just didn't follow up with it. Another thing, if I could have recut, like in my two movie cut, if I could have changed one thing, it would have been that Tauriel killed Bolg,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that is what that
was a
film
complete
needed.
way. Like even
Yeah.
without a re-edit, it's
Yeah.
like that's all we wanted out of
Yeah.
her, to be a hero. She
Yeah.
was set up to be a hero. She was set up to be the only elf that mattered.
Right
Yeah.
on.
The only
Yeah.
elf that cared about
she was
all
a
the
great
other
character.
races. And
My cart, or the cart, is
Okay.
over by the counter. It's got a bunch of books. It's covered in a thing. Just move it if it's in your way, but try and keep it over there.
okay,
Just all the shit I can't put away tonight.
okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Adam. We love Adam Parker, our
Hey,
buddy
Adam.
from Meltdown Comics.
Oh, are you guys still going?
Yes,
Oh,
Meltdown.
yeah.
Our show is on, and hey, say hi real quick, Adam. Say hi to the Lord of the Rings fans out there.
Hey, well, I don't know where you are.
Come
but
lean in, lean in. There he is, right there's the camera. There's our book manager from Meltdown Comics.
We have little Frodo Funko Pop keychains if anyone's
You finally got
interested.
Tolkien stuff.
Yay!
We can finally get Tolkien stuff.
Good stuff. Come to Meltdown Comics.
You can stop bothering me.
7522 Sunset Boulevard,
Have a good one, guys.
Los Angeles 90046. Come join us.
The amazing thing about this show, everyone in the chat room has been constantly bringing up the 6th anniversaries that we've been doing for this for 6 years, and you
This
flew
is
all the
6
way
years.
from Ireland just to come on the show. We really appreciate the support.
Of course. That's the only reason why I'm here.
We love that you were one of the original viewers when we were on
absolutely.
Stickam, and you
Cool.
followed us on
Yeah.
the road trip.
Yeah.
And
That's impressive,
and
too.
you were part of Barlaman's chat, our
Yeah.
IRC chat room.
Yeah.
You guys can find Red the Spud chatting with all the folks in Barlamans from time to time. He spends more time there drinking with his buddies than I do, which is a good thing.
Do you know what the ironic thing is? I'm an Irishman, but I don't drink.
Well, see, in Barlamans, I just made a joke. We don't drink in Barlamans. We chat.
Yeah.
We chat and talk with each other. But, you know, at home, it comes in pints, and I'm getting me one. In my own home, I drink and type at the same time.
Hey,
I
so
really
let me
do.
ask you this: like, you were one of the first people to watch what we were doing live streaming. We were on Stickam. We drove across the country. What was so interesting about watching us drive across the country? Because I don't know, we kind of felt boring after a while.
Well, I mean, first, to be honest, I didn't watch this all the time driving across country, but no, it was kind of exciting, and it was back whenever, you know, the hype of The Hobbit was so exciting, and, you know, we were all trying to work out what it was going to be like, and, you know, reading into the trailers, and so then, you know, being live with you guys, and then the whole community commenting on it and talking about things along the way, it was really good fun, and, you know, it was a great way. You know, you would send in a comment, and then, you know, you just would read it out. Or I ended up actually calling in one time, oddly enough, to talk about the redesign of Azog, and friggin' 5 years later I'm still bloody talking about it.
Yes.
It has fascinated me that bloody much.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and that is actually what I was talking with you, and I think it was before Desolation came out, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then I was reading into it, because it was something that just really annoyed me, because I was like, why did they do it? And I think I finally got to the bottom of why they did it, and that's why I did what I did, to just try and,
That's
you know.
cool.
And I think ultimately someday I will meet Peter Jackson and I'll be like, why did you do it? And finally get an answer from the
academic
from the
answer.
horse's mouth.
Right on.
I shook his hand once. It was wonderful. I was at the European premiere of the first film.
Oh, cool.
And, it was in Leicester Square in London, and it was so much fun. In fact, it was all of the hype from the OneRing.net that I remember. I was working at home. I was a youth worker, and I decided, do you know what? I'm going to go to the London premiere. Why not? And so I went, and I stood along the edge of it was a green carpet. It wasn't the red carpet. It was a green carpet for The Hobbit. And I stood there, frozen in Leicester Square, and I shook everyone's hand. I saw there was a wonderful moment, where everybody else was looking for autographs. I was like, I don't care about autographs. I just want to shake their hand and talk to them. You know, I just want to say, and more so, I was talking to them. I was like, you know, and are you having a good night? You know, because I was realizing as well, particularly for a lot of the lads playing the dwarves.
Yeah.
This was their big moment.
Yeah.
This was, you know, like some of the guys had done this before, but this was it. And I was sitting there going, and are you just having a good time? Are you enjoying it? And they're like, do you know what? I am. You know, and it was nice, and it was good for it, because I know that myself. Like, you know, I wouldn't be as successful an actor as them yet. But you know, but I understand that too, being part of those big projects and seeing it come to fruition, and also just remembering to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, and going, you know, be sure to enjoy it. So I love that, and I remember I shook Andy Serkis's hand, and I says, Andy, it is amazing what you have done for acting in cinema. And he just looked right back at me and he said, thank you very much. And then I witnessed this lovely moment between him and Bernard Hill, who was at the premiere, and the two of them, they clearly hadn't seen each other in ages, and they just had this wonderful embrace. And I was just like, oh, this is so cute. That's happened right in front of me.
That's great.
Andy was at Comic-Con. He unveiled a brand new Gollum statue with
Andy
Richard
Serkis.
Taylor right there.
Yeah,
oh man,
that's
it was
cool.
great to see them two. Like,
I'd love to
connect.
meet him properly.
So
you know.
real quick, Star Wars or Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones?
Lord of the Rings.
But you've sat on the Iron Throne.
I have sat on the Iron Throne.
The real Iron
The
Throne.
real Iron
Not
Throne.
the one at Comic-Con that's
True
made
story.
of rubber swords. You've seen that one.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Where
Yeah, no, this
the
is
one
the
at Comic-Con
actual
they have is made of basically foam core rubber
Yeah.
swords. It looks good on camera, but it's not the real thing. You've been to the set of Game of Thrones.
That's the real one.
Wow.
That's the real McCoy.
On the set.
On the set.
Because they film in Ireland.
Yes. I'll not say how I was there.
Wow.
Well, I was
it-
an extra. I was an extra in season 6. I was at
Cool.
the Siege of River Run.
What?
Oh, cool.
Not the
Yeah.
Battle of the Bastards.
No, they'd already shot that at that point, and I'd heard there was quite an attrition rate of extras at that.
Oh, wow. I bet there
yeah,
was.
but no, it was really good. It was really good fun.
Wow.
And it's an amazing book because it's all shot in Northern Ireland, which is just next door to me. Like the main studios are in Belfast, and it's very funny actually because there's this huge Titanic museum. It's literally where they made the Titanic 100 years ago or 105 years ago or whatever it is, where they built the Titanic. Now they're building. Or now they're making Game of Thrones. Literally, just not even
Wow,
not
awesome.
even 200 meters away. They're making Game of Thrones right beside where they used to.
What does the Iron Throne feel like? Does it feel kingly? Does it feel like you could feel this negative energy of Sauron coming?
It is
Cersei,
it is
Lannister?
as uncomfortable as it should be. It's surprisingly deep. It's
Really?
like you kind of sit into it. You go, wow, there's a lot of room in this. Yeah, no, it's wonderful to sit in, and the whole hall is there. Like they have built the whole hall
Yeah.
in the big massive studio. So like I mean this was years ago that I was on it. They were shooting it was years and years ago. And at this stage of the game, there are all the secrets have been revealed. So I'm not revealing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
Wow.
it's a great production to have right on our doorstep. And it's bringing great, much the same as what Lord of the Rings has done for New Zealand. Game of Thrones is doing that for Northern Ireland, and it's
Yeah.
brilliant. And so many tourists are coming now to
And
see.
other productions are up there.
Yeah,
right?
well, Star Wars.
Star Wars
The-
8, episode 8, the new
episode
Star
8.
Wars.
Yes, that's
Episode
right.
8
Was filmed up
was
in
filmed in County Donegal, my home county.
Right on, County Donegal.
The most northern county in Ireland, and they shot right up at the northernmost point of Ireland.
Awesome.
Malin Head, and
Wow.
it was.
Wait, did you see anything?
It was a very exciting week when Star Wars came to town.
Episode 8,
Well,
the new one.
because they already shot. They shot the end of episode 7 in Ireland, Skellig Michal.
Those islands, those protected
like that
islands.
big gorgeous island at the
Yes.
end. That is real.
Which is now overrun with tourists.
Well-
because of the film.
Well,
yeah.
they still manage it though because it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Yes.
That island where Luke Skywalker is. Spoilers.
Yes.
All those stone buildings there, they're not set. They're actually built by like 8th or 7th century monks who built a monastery out on this little rugged island. Essentially, what Luke Skywalker is doing now.
Yes.
That actually was the case.
Well, we have Calico Ghost Town built in 1882.
Well, this was built in the year 700 and something.
It's a bit older. Just
You
a
know?
bit
Whatever.
older.
Right out in the Atlantic
America.
Ocean. Yeah.
So I can imagine like whatever you seeing episode 8. Logan in your town must have been compared to Cliff. You going
Yeah.
to to New Zealand and seeing Minas Tirith
Yeah.
and Helm's Deep.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
For a fan to be that close
yeah.
to a production
Yeah.
of what they most want to see.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Like,
the most exciting thing.
I remember looking across, and now I've been up to Malin Head many times. It's about an hour's drive from my home.
Malin Head.
Malin Head, Ireland's most northerly point. Beautiful. And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous landscape. And I remember going up, and a few people were driving up, and we had gorgeous weather. It was in May last year, and loads of people were driving up just to see what they could see. And there, in the distance, on the coast, was the Millennium Falcon.
Full size?
Whoa.
Full size.
Whoa.
And it was just like, well, now the top of it was, they'd only kind of more so built the underside of it in detail, but
Whoa.
it was the Millennium Falcon. And you
That's
just look at it, I was like,
amazing.
it's
That
the
is-
Falcon.
That's amazing.
And
dude.
so there was loads of excitement around Donegal, and then so they were shooting that whole weekend, and my cousins own a hotel, McGrory's in Kildaff, which is not too far from Mallinhead, and that is where they. That is where a lot of the cast and crew, because quite a few films have been shot in that area, and so they have housed. That hotel has housed film crews in the past. So I figured, right. So I sent my cousins a text message. I was like, myself and my friend Niall McDonough. Hey Niall, we play in a band called Tasty, and just a two-piece, just the two of us, and we're both real avid Star Wars fans. So if you need some entertainment, we would love to play
At the hotel.
at the hotel.
Yes.
So we, of course, everything was all hush hush, and all of the plans were kind of being kind of kept quiet. But the Sunday they finished recording, I remember I was just coming out of the cinema with my dad to see Captain America: Civil War, and I had like 3 missed calls on my phone, and I was like, what? And I got the phone call from my cousin, and she was like, John, what are you doing tonight? I was like, nothing. Why? Can you come play for Star Wars? Yes, sure, we're on our way. Okay. And so we come up there, and we set up in the pub, and we start playing at about kind of 9 or 10 o'clock, and they all just start kind of filing in one, because they're all just getting back from having closing up the set and stuff.
Wow.
But Ryan Johnson, the director, he was one of the first. He was one of the first in. He was sitting there eating his dinner, and we were just playing quietly. And we actually didn't know what he looked like to begin with, and it was only towards the end of the evening that we realised that was Ryan Johnson. And so he'd been watching us the whole night, and the place was packed. Like I'd say there was about 150 people there.
Wow.
And then Daisy Ridley was in there, and she was dancing away. We were all, and we got her down to do a wee photograph, and it was great fun. Now Mark Hamill, unfortunately, he was off at another pub doing a wee promotional thing there, so we didn't get to meet Mark Hamill, but we got to meet Ryan Johnson, and we got to meet Daisy Ridley, and all of the absolutely legendary crew who worked on it. And it was so much fun, and I cannot wait. From the glimpses that I saw from their Comic-Con preview, I think I spotted a little glimpse of Mallinhead. So I'm like, to see my home county. I'm very, very proud of my home county, and to see that immortalized in Star Wars. Like, if you had told me as a kid watching the original trilogy that they're going to shoot they're going to shoot episode 7 in Ireland. All right. Oh wow, yeah, right. They're going to shoot episode 8 in Donegal, in Mallinhead. You know,
you would have said you're full of it.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have believed it. I know. You know, there was an effort once upon a time in the late '60s when the very first Lord of the Rings script was drafted by a writer named Zimmerman, and he was hired by Uncle Forey. Forrest J. Ackerman, editor and creator of famous Monsters of Filmland, he had sent J.R.R. Tolkien the sample script and sent him a bunch of photographs of the wilderness areas and mountainous areas of Southern California, telling the professor, here's some possible places where we might shoot on location.
Hey, we're going to
this, Lord of the Rings movie here in Southern California. Could have been. Could have been. Some locations right here and here's our buddy Kieran.
Yeah, but Southern California is a desert.
It is, but you got to find particular spots.
Hey, Kieran.
Hey, how's it going?
There's my buddy from Wales. There's Kieran. Hey, it's your next door neighbor from Northern Ireland. I mean, not really Northern Ireland.
North of Ireland.
But
part of the Republic.
The Republic of
It's a touchy
Ireland.
subject.
I know, but I was going to build that joke in, but you got it.
So what brings you to the show today?
I haven't been in here for a while, so I thought I'd come join back, get a load of what's happening.
So given the chance, would you sit on the Iron Throne?
Yeah. Get it. Fucking Cersei Lannister being my slave all the time. Why not I?
Wow, okay. Wow,
That's
all
a
right.
very different Iron Throne.
Well, she would make me her slave, wouldn't she?
So we've been talking about the changes made to The Hobbit. What are your opinions on Azog and the look of Azog?
What, compared to define how you mean by changes?
We've been talking about it for 45 minutes.
Yeah, I watched a bit of it, and I kind of, and I went downstairs, and I come back up, and I need, like, you know, so.
Like all CG versus like an actual man in suit.
Oh, like, didn't I kind of, like, didn't I ask these questions, like, I spoke about it a little bit more before, about, like, based on, like, how, kind of, like, based on, like, what like, the new equipment they used with The Hobbit compared to what they didn't use with The Lord of the Rings, and, like, how they made Smaug and all that. Because, like, I've seen the reruns when you see Benedict, I can't see his second name.
Cumberbatch.
Like, he was in the suit and like he was playing that part, but it's like you don't realize how just a guy wearing grey can turn. You can put it on screen as just a huge ass dragon. It's like fair, but so like you mean you wouldn't get that technology a couple of years ago when Lord of the Rings was around, would you?
No, it's a bit different. But did you like or dislike the fact that they changed, a living, physical person in an orc suit, and then changed it to Azog, who is, CGI and stands about, 2 stone taller than, any horse should be.
In some ways, I do
horses
like
in hands,
it.
don't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
In some ways, I really do like it because it shows how like if they've upgraded, they've made new changes to like on different. It shows like how much effort they've gone into like making this thing. Like with Gollum and stuff like that, it was kind of the same, but they kind of stepped it a little bit higher from a little creature to like a huge dragon. It's just like